denizens of the night. Welcome to another episode of the macabre, the terrifying. Tonight, we'll hear a genre that I love, park ranger stories. Carson Hale is a senior ranger in northern Arizona. Around 6:30 one night, a call comes in to locate a missing hiker along the Cottonwood Wash trail. As Carson follows the hiker's trail by following his footprints, he finds much more than he bargained for, and something else finds him. This story is called A Missing Hiker Call Changed How I Take Night Shifts Forever, and was written by Pentyworth 223. I don't take solo night calls anymore. On paper, I'm still a ranger with the State Parks Department. My badge says Senior Ranger. My contract says Backcountry Specialist. But after what happened last October, I started volunteering for every maintenance shift that keeps me within sight of a road and a crowd. There's an incident report for it. It's in a binder behind the front desk, third shelf down, page for October 19th. If you flip to it, this is what you'd see. Ranger Carson Hale responded to an overdue hiker call from the Cottonwood Wash trailhead. Returned at 0712 hours. Report of possible animal activity. Ongoing missing persons case. That's the neat version. The version for supervisors and lawyers and anyone who needs closure that fits on a line. Everything else I'm putting here because I can't sleep when it's quiet anymore. That day started like every other shoulder season Thursday. I was at the station doing the usual nonsense, answering the same questions about whether we have bears, yes, whether we have wolves, no, and whether their dog can be off-leash, also no. I don't care how friendly he is. I filled out a maintenance request for the busted faucet by the campground, dug through the lost and found for a kid's left sandal, and tried not to think too hard about how much of my job is being an underpaid hall monitor with a radio. We're a small park wedged between national forest and reservation land, a chunk of canyons and pinyon, dry creek beds and sandstone ledges. You drive east from town, past the Family Dollar and the last Circle K, hit the brown sign for Cottonwood Wash State Park, and then it's 7 more miles on a 2-lane that turns to washboard dirt if you miss the turn. October's our almost quiet month. Cool days, cold nights, tourists thinning out but not gone. Enough people to keep the lights on, not enough to justify overtime. Around 6:30 p.m., I just poured the last of the coffee from the station pot into my dented stainless thermos. It was already lukewarm and tasted like metal and burnt beans, but I'm not picky. I screwed the lid on, told myself I'd reheat it later, and we both know I wasn't going to. I was halfway through the shift change checklist when dispatch crackled over the base station. "Unit 3, you still at the station?" I thumbed my handheld. "Yeah, go ahead." "Got a call from County Sheriff, overdue hiker. Vehicle registered to a Matthew Klein, age 34. Parked at Cottonwood Wash trailhead since 0917 this morning. No contact. Girlfriend called it in about 20 minutes ago." I glanced at the wall clock. 1942. Outside the office window, the sky was a strip of dull purple over the ridge, sun already gone. Morales, night shift, was still tied up on a poaching complaint up in the north sector. She told me over the radio an hour earlier she was knee-deep in camo idiots and shell casings. "All right," I said. "I'll check the lot, see if he signed in. Maybe he just took the loop slow." "You sure?" Dispatch sounded tired but concerned. "You'd be solo out there, 3. Just a quick sweep to the first marker, I said. I won't go stupid deep. The lie came out easy. It always does when you tell yourself you're just checking. I keep my pack under the desk, half out of habit, and half because if I put it away somewhere proper, I'll forget something. First aid kit, trauma shears, SAM splint, extra water, tarp, a coil of paracord I always call a bowline when I show the junior ranger kids, even though it's not. I know it's not. My brain grabs the wrong knot every single time I've got an audience. I slung the pack over one shoulder, grabbed the SAR radio and a printed map from the rack, even though I can draw the trails from memory, and signed myself out on the board. Carson, Cottonwood Wash, Overdue Hiker, 1950. The drive out felt longer than usual. Headlights carved through sage and rabbit brush, catching the odd jackrabbit frozen in the beam before it bolted. The pavement gave up about 4 miles out. The truck bounced as tires hit hard-packed washboard. I passed the old CCC bathhouse ruins on the left, a crumbling line of stone and a rusted interpretive sign. I always think it's a WPA work until I kneel down and see the nailhead stamped 1937 CCC, and remember I've had that exact thought before. Nobody else was out there. No other vehicles. No porch lights on the distant ranch houses. No campfire glow. Just the road and the dark shapes of mesas hemming it in. The handheld radio rode on the passenger seat by my thermos, volume low, dispatch chatter a tinny murmur. The coffee had gone from lukewarm to cold. I took a swallow anyway out of habit and grimaced. I pulled into the Cottonwood Wash trailhead lot at 2003. One vehicle sat there, a blue Subaru Outback with a rental barcode sticker on the rear window. Thin coat of dust, no tracks behind the tires, hood cold when I put my hand on it. I swung the truck so the headlights washed over the bulletin board and trailhead sign. The board was the usual mess: faded fire danger meter, watch for rattlesnakes poster, a missing dog flyer someone had taped up 3 months ago. The wind barely moved. The cottonwoods along the dry creek bed might as well have been painted on. I grabbed my flashlight, clicked it on, and walked over to the sign-in box. We don't force people to log in and out, but we encourage it. Sometimes it saves hours. Sometimes it doesn't help at all. The sheet inside was almost full. I flipped past the earlier entries until I saw it. Name, Matthew Klein. Timeout, 0930. Destination, Loop to Ridge Overlook. Expected return, by 5. I don't know why that by 5 snagged in my head. People usually scribble afternoon or don't bother. The way he wrote it made it look like a promise, like he'd told someone, "I'll be out by 5, I swear." "Unit 3 at Cottonwood Trailhead," I said into the radio. "Subject's vehicle present. Name matches sign-in. No sign of subject at lot." "Copy 3, dispatch answered. "You requesting secondary unit?" I looked out at the trail sign, the dark mouth of the path dropping into the wash. The part of my brain that likes checklists and procedures whispered, "You should wait." The other part, that loud search and rescue part that starts writing worst-case scenarios the second a hiker is late, was already picturing a broken ankle at the first switchback, a guy sitting in the dark, slowly getting hypothermic because I didn't want to lose sleep. "Negative for now," I said. "I'll hike to first mile marker, see if I pick up his tracks. If he went out at 9, he should have been back before dark." "Copy. Check in every 30. I clipped the radio back to my vest, tightened my pack straps. The air had that in-between temperature where you know the real cold is waiting just out of sight. The trail into Cottonwood Wash starts as a gentle slope of packed sand and loose rock, then drops into the creek bed after a quarter-mile. In daylight, it's a casual stroll. At night, even with a good light, your world shrinks to a tunnel, the circle in front of your boots, and then nothing. I stepped past the trailhead sign and felt that shift I always do. The parking lot behind me became a rectangle of lesser darkness. Ahead was just the beam and the unknown. I picked up his tracks before the first switchback. Decent hiking boots, not fashion ones. Deep tread, maybe size 10. The sandy stretches between rock patches held his prints like ink. You get used to reading people in their tracks, whether they walked or jogged, how heavy their pack might have been, whether they were sightseeing or marching. For the first half-mile, Matthew Klein read like a normal guy out for a long loop. Center of the trail, steady stride, no dragging, no weird pauses, nothing that said panic, nothing that said intoxicated or injured. The canyon was colder than the lot. The rock walls held the cool and let heat bleed off fast. My breath fogged in the beam in short bursts. Somewhere up on the rim, a coyote yipped once and then shut up. I waited to hear the others answer. They didn't. At the first mile marker, a battered wooden post with 1 carved into it and a strip of reflective tape peeling away, I checked my watch. 20:26. Unit 3, I said into the radio. At mile marker 1, subject's trail still visible and consistent. Continuing toward ridge overlook. Static hissed. Then dispatch's voice slid through, muffled and thin. Copy 3. Signals get spotty. Check at bridge. Say again? I turned the volume up. More static. For a second, I heard my own voice loop back at me, tinny and warped. Bridge. Bridge. That happens sometimes in the canyons, too. Radios bouncing off rock faces, catching their own echo. I told myself that's all it was, thumbed the side of the radio like that would make a difference, and kept going. Half a mile past the marker, the story in the dirt changed. It started small, a single step off the packed center of the trail, a deeper imprint like he'd stumbled and caught himself. Then another. Then a run of short, choppy steps that veered toward the right, toward the darker line of brush hugging the wash wall. I swept my light ahead slowly. The beam caught on a long scuff where something heavy had slid sideways, gouging a shallow trench in the sand. Matthew's boot print overlapped the end of it, toes dug in like he'd pushed hard. I crouched, fingers brushing the disturbed sand. The trench went both ways, as if something had been dragged, stopped, and then dragged again. Beside it, half softened by wind, was another print. My first thought was coyote, then big dog. Then something gave up. It was a bare foot. It wasn't right, though. The toes were too long, with an odd curve to them. The arch of the foot dipped narrow and deep, like it belonged to someone who'd never worn shoes in their life. But the heel print was wrong too, set in a way that didn't match the weight distribution I'm used to seeing. The deepest point wasn't at the ball or heel, but along the outer edge, as if whoever it belonged to rolled their weight there. I felt my stomach tighten. People hike barefoot. I've seen older locals do it, and I've seen social media idiots do it so they can say they did. But you don't see bare human feet out here at 11 p.m. in October. My light found a second bare footprint farther along, cutting across the trail at an angle. Then a third, half on rock, half in sand. They moved with a strange loping stride, parallel to Matthew's for a while, then angling closer. I swallowed. Could be nothing, I said out loud, which is dumb, but people talk to themselves alone in the field more than they admit. Could be some kid messing around, could be erosion, could be me reading shadows. The wind at my back shifted. For a second, just a second, it brought a smell with it that didn't belong out here. Sour and coppery and hot, like a butcher shop that hadn't been cleaned right. Then it was gone. The hair on my arms rose under my sleeves. I swept my light around. Canyon walls, brush, the path behind me, nothing but rock and dark. "Matthew!" I called, voice louder than before. "Ranger service! If you can hear me, yell or bang on something." My words traveled up and out, bounced back thinner, shredded by distance. No other sound answered. I followed the tracks. They left the main trail at a break in the rock wall I've walked past 100 times without thinking. The wash narrows there, and there's a slope of loose rock leading up to a gap between two big sandstone blocks. You can see it on the topo map as a little side drainage, but nobody puts it on the brochures. Matthew's boots had climbed it in a hurry. Slips, slides, toe digs like he was scrambling. The bare prints followed with a steadier, almost lazy step, each toe splayed in the gravel like they were gripping. Protocol says, don't leave the marked trail on a solo night search unless there's imminent danger. That sentence was in the back of my head. So was the DA's voice from a training video about unnecessary exposure to risk. But walking away when the tracks clearly went up that slope would mean if he was lying broken 20 yards beyond it, I'd chosen my own safety over his life. Try clocking out with that in your chest. So I went. The scree rolled under my boots with every step, tiny rock falls rattling down slope. Dust got in my teeth. I kept my light low, checking each place I planned to put my weight. At the top, the gap funneled into a narrow side canyon I'd only ever glanced at in daylight. A vertical slit of shadow between red walls, choked with scrub oak, fallen branches, and old flood debris. At night it felt wrong, is the only word that fits. The air changed as soon as I stepped through. The faint breeze from the main wash died. The temperature dropped a couple degrees. Even the starlight thinned out. The walls leaned over just enough to box it in. Matthew's boots and the bare prints ran nearly side by side now, sometimes overlapping. Here and there, small, darker spots dotted the sand. I knew what they were before I reached down and touched one with a gloved fingertip. Blood looks almost black in flashlight beams. "Matthew?" I yelled again, throat tighter this time. "If you're hurt, shout. I'm here to help you." Something answered me. Not words, not quite. It rose up from somewhere ahead and above, a thin keening that sounded like it had been fed through too many speakers in a row and come out damaged. It wasn't a coyote. It wasn't the wind. It had the cadence of a sob, but none of the shape. It bounced off the canyon walls and came back in fragments. My skin crawled. I told myself it could be wind tearing past a crack in the rock. Could be an injured animal. Could be anything besides the thing my brain was edging toward. My body didn't care what label I put on it. My feet were already moving toward the sound. I don't know how far that side canyon goes in daylight. At night, distance just stops meaning anything. My watch said I walked another 10 minutes. My lungs and legs said 30. Around a bend, the walls peeled back into a bowl-shaped clearing, maybe 30 yards across. The floor was a mess of scrub, deadfall, and old flood lines. In the center, half collapsed and furred with lichen, was a ring of stone. It wasn't one of our fire rings. Too big, too tall, too deliberate. Knee-to-chest-high slabs of rock, set in a near-perfect circle, all leaning inward just a little, like they'd been shoved and decided not to fall after all. Some had shallow marks carved into them, so worn you couldn't tell if they'd ever meant anything. I stopped on the edge of it, pulse thudding in my throat. My light picked up a bright slash of color against one upright stone. For a second, my brain said trash. Then it clicked. A torn scrap of neon orange fabric, high-vis nylon, the kind every REI mannequin wears in October. It was stuck to the rough rock with something dried and dark. The edges were ragged, as if it had been chewed or shredded by hand. Near it, at the base of the stone, the sand showed a wide smear, as if something heavy had been dragged and pivoted there. Matthew's boot prints walked up to that spot and ended. The bare prints didn't. They were everywhere. In the dust, on the flat stones, circling the ring, doubling back over themselves. Some were deeper, the toes clawed in like whatever had made them had pushed hard, maybe to leap. That broken, keening sound rose again. This time, it came from above me. I tilted my head back, lifting the light. At first, my brain tried to make it a tree branch, a human shadow, anything. Something clung to a narrow ledge, maybe 10 feet above the ring. Pale limbs bent at angles that made my joints ache just looking. It was pressed flat to the rock, in a way that didn't seem like it should be possible. My beam slid over it once, twice, before the details assembled into the idea of a body. Its head turned before the rest of it did, jerking around quick and then stopping too suddenly. The eyes caught my light and reflected it back, flat and bright like marbles. It wore part of a jacket, neon orange, ripped almost in half down the center. One sleeve hung empty and shredded. The torso under it was narrow, too narrow. Ribs showed under skin that looked too tight, but in other places, the skin bunched and folded like it had extra it didn't know what to do with. The face? I still can't quite hold the face in my head. When I try, I get pieces. There was a jaw, eye sockets, cheekbones, but everything was a little off, like someone had assembled a face from memory and gotten the spacing wrong. The nose sat too high. One eye socket was wider than the other. The mouth sloped, higher on one side, lower on the other, as if whoever had cut it hadn't drawn the line straight. Its lips moved. That thin, wrong sobbing noise came out, but the mouth barely opened. The sound didn't match the shape. For a few seconds, we just stared at each other, my light pinning it on the ledge, it staring back with its head tilted at the same angle as mine. Then it let go. It dropped straight down into the stone circle. No scramble, no preparing for impact. It just released and hit in a crouch. I waited for the thump, for gravel scattering. Nothing. Or if there was a sound, I didn't hear it through the thudding in my ears. Up close, the smell hit me like a wall. Wet fur, copper, and something else. Old earth, maybe? The way a cellar smells when it's been shut up for too long? I don't remember deciding to unclasp my holster, but suddenly my handgun was in my hand, my fingers slick on the grip. Training says you back away slowly, keep your weapon up, keep your voice calm. You don't talk to unknown animals like they're people. I heard myself say, "Matthew?" Anyway. The thing's head twitched to the side. The movement was too sharp, like someone had cut a frame out of its animation. Its eyes flicked down to the gun, then back to my face. Its mouth worked. The sound coming out changed. Less like a broken sob, more like someone trying to push air through a throat that wasn't built right. It said. The word came out crushed and stretched, like someone had taken a recording and pulled the waveform. The T was barely there. The vowel dragged too long. It sounded like someone trying to talk underwater. I can help you, I heard myself stammer. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Just stay where you are. I took a step back. It took one forward. The bare feet left clean prints in the dust between the stones. Up close, the skin there looked wrong too. Too thin and shiny in some spots, thick and almost scaly in others. On one ankle, there was a faint line, a seam, where the texture changed abruptly from something smooth and human to something rougher, like animal hide. My flashlight beam shook. The stones cast hard-edged shadows over its body, hiding pieces of it and then showing them again in a stuttering rhythm as I tried to keep the light steady. Somewhere behind me, far out in the main wash, the wind started up again. It slid around the corner of the canyon and over the bowl, cold and thin on the sweat at the back of my neck. "Stop!" I said, raising the gun. "Don't come any closer! I'm not kidding!" The thing's jaw flexed. Its lips peeled back a fraction too far, exposing teeth that were mostly the right shape and size, but sat just a little off. One turned, one slightly higher than the rest. The skin at the corners of its mouth tore as it stretched, hairline cracks opening and leaking something dark that wasn't the bright, fresh red I expected. The keening cut off. The silence that dropped in its place was heavy in a way air shouldn't be. Then, very clearly, it said, "Help!" Not like someone begging, like someone testing a word they'd practiced. I'd love to tell you I fired, that I put 2 rounds center mass, that it dropped, that we hauled a body out and tagged it and sent it off to a lab, and now I can point to a report and say, "This is what that was." Instead, the part of me that has nothing to do with training, the old part, the prey animal part, took over. I turned and ran. The next few minutes exist in my memory like a series of still photos. My boots hitting the canyon floor, my pack slamming between my shoulders, my flashlight beam jerking over rocks and dead branches, and the mouths of side cracks. Behind me, something moved. At first, there was a noise like someone pulling themselves free from deep mud, a wet suction sound. Then the patter of feet. More than 2. Faster than I wanted to believe anything on 2 legs could move on that terrain. I didn't look back. I knew if I did, my brain would freeze and my body would follow. The narrow part of the side canyon came up too fast. I clipped my shoulder on one wall, bounced off the other, skinning my knuckles. Pain flared bright and stupid and somehow helped because it made everything feel real again. The main wash opened ahead in a slice of slightly lighter dark. The strip of sky above got wider. Stars were just pinpricks between canyon rims, but they were there. My radio exploded with static against my chest. "Son? Carson, you copy? We lost you on 3. Are you—" "3!" I yelled. No call sign discipline left. "Unit 3! I'm in Cottonwood Side Canyon! I've encountered—" I had to swallow to get the next words out. "Encountered something. Possible subject, unknown animal. I'm retreating, requesting immediate—" Static swallowed the rest. The radio screeched in my ear. For a second, under the noise, I heard another voice, my own, or something mimicking it, repeat, "Unknown," back at me, stretched and warped. Behind me, closer than I wanted to know, that broken voice called out, "Help! Help! Car!" It said my name like it was chewing it. I don't remember deciding to slow down. I do remember my knee blowing up with pain as I misjudged a step and my right foot skidded on loose gravel. I went down hard. Something in my knee popped, and the world went white around the edges. I grabbed a juniper branch and used it to haul myself up. My legs screamed. The smart move would have been to stop, get my bearings, maybe find cover. I kept moving. You can't sprint blind through a canyon and expect to survive. Every instinct screamed, run as fast as you can. The rest of me knew if I broke into a full panicked scramble, I'd miss a turn and go off into a side ravine or over a ledge. So I forced myself to do the thing I always tell new rangers in training. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Or however that saying actually goes. It feels like garbage when something's chasing you, but it keeps you alive. "Watch the trail," I muttered, breath ragged. "Landmarks? You know this place? You've been here 100 times?" The first mile marker came into view like a hallucination, reflective tape winking in my beam. If I'd had spare oxygen, I probably would have laughed. "Halfway," I told myself. "Just halfway. Keep going." Something moved at the edge of my light up on the slope. I swung the beam toward it. For a second, I thought the juniper trunks were playing tricks on me. Then it stepped out from behind one. It stood on the slope above the trail, maybe 20 yards away. The torn orange of the jacket glowed faintly against its chest. Its limbs looked longer than they had in the stone circle. Joints set at slightly different angles, like the act of moving had rearranged them. Its head was cocked. Its eyes didn't glow like an animal's this time. They just absorbed the light. Too still, too intent. We stared at each other for 1, 2 heartbeats. Then it moved. Not toward me. Parallel. It began to walk the contour line up on the slope, matching my position as I started down trail again. Same pace, same distance. Every time I flicked the light that way, it was there, just outside the center of the beam. I've watched mountain lions shadow people before. I've seen coyotes trot along a ridge, keeping a hunter in sight. This was like that, and not like that at all. There was no curious tilt, no animal caution. It felt clinical, like it was observing. Like it had decided running me down wasn't as interesting as seeing what I'd do. I kept my eyes mostly on the trail, checking every few seconds that it was still there and not suddenly closer. My heart hammered. My knee ached with every step. The urge to bolt full out almost shook my teeth. Morales' voice came back to me out of nowhere. Us at the picnic table behind the station on a dead afternoon, her rolling a cigarette between her fingers, talking about the stories her grandmother used to tell. "Stuff out there that walks on 2 legs and 4, and you don't say the name," she'd said. "You don't look at it if you can help it. You sure as hell don't talk to it. If it knows you know, that's when you've got a problem." I'd made some dumb joke about already having enough to worry about with tourists. I didn't feel like laughing now. I didn't talk. I didn't raise the radio again. I didn't shoot. The trail curved left, then right. The rectangle of open sky that meant the trailhead lot was close crept into view in front of me, pale compared to the canyon. Above me, the thing stopped. I looked up before I could stop myself. It stood at the very edge of the slope, toes almost over the drop. In my light, its eyes had gone reflective again, picking up just enough glow to look wrong. Its chest rose and fell once, then it opened its mouth. The sound that came out wasn't a scream the way you think of a scream. It was a steady, high, piercing tone, a sound so sharp it made the fillings in my molars ache. It didn't rise or fall, it just held, like a test tone in your inner ear. Underneath it, I heard something else. Layered, fainter, a murmur that might have been voices stacked on top of each other, like a crowd recorded from too far away. Some sounded like they were crying, some like they were laughing, but none of the emotion matched the tone. It was all wrong. The world narrowed to that noise and the rectangle of the trailhead lot ahead. My legs did the choosing for me. I ran. The tone cut off midstream, like someone had yanked a cable. The sudden silence was almost a physical hit. I sprinted the last stretch, my knee protesting with every jolt. Adrenaline did what ibuprofen can't. Then I was out. I burst into the parking lot like I'd stepped through a door. The truck, the pit toilet, the bullet-riddled no shooting sign, everything ordinary and stupid and real appeared all at once. My flashlight beam slammed into the side of the blue Subaru, bounced to the bulletin board, swung over the hood of my truck. My thermos was still on the seat where I'd left it, silver catching the light. For some reason, that almost undid me more than anything else. The radio at my shoulder clicked. 3, Carson? You copy? We lost you for a good 10 minutes there. My knees finally gave out. I dropped onto the dirt by the truck, one hand catching the bumper to keep myself from face planting. The radio dug into my chest where the harness had shifted, the antenna jabbing under my jaw. My boot knocked the thermos off the seat when I leaned in. It hit the floorboard with a dull thunk I felt in my teeth.
3,
I gasped.
At trailhead. I'm at the lot. Subject not found. Unknown animal in area. I repeat, unknown animal. Aggressive behavior. Request backup. Lots of backup.
I wasn't proud of how that last bit came out.
Copy, 3,
dispatch said, clearly exhaling into the mic.
Morales is en route. County deputies notified. ETA 20 to 25. Stay in your vehicle. Do not re-enter the trail. Affirmative,
I said, and it came out more like a wheeze than a word. I hauled myself upright, using the truck's side mirror. My reflection looked worse than I felt. Sweat plastered dark hair to my forehead, a smear of blood on one knuckle, dust all up my pants, eyes wide. The Subaru sat silent and patient. For reasons I didn't examine too closely right then, I walked over to the driver's side and cupped my hands to peer inside. The door was locked. Through the glass, I could see a rental agreement on the passenger seat with the logo from a Phoenix airport rental place, a half-empty Arrowhead water bottle, and a dog-eared Rand McNally atlas folded open to northern Arizona. On the back seat was an orange jacket, or what was left of it. The main body of it had been stuffed in there in a hurry, still zipped. Both sleeves were shredded, long diagonal tears running from cuff to shoulder. The nylon was stiff and dark in patches. Someone had tried to wipe it off and given up. The drying made it pucker. I stared at it for long enough that Morales' headlights coming up the road made me jump. I didn't tell Morales everything that night. I told her I'd followed the subject's tracks to an unmarked side canyon, heard what I thought was an injured person, found blood and torn clothing and signs of a struggle. I told her something large had shadowed me on the way out, that I hadn't seen it clearly, that it might have been a mountain lion acting strange. She looked at my face for a second longer than was comfortable, then nodded once. "Okay," she said. "Animal. Fine. You're limping. You're not going back in." The deputies pulled in behind her, doors slamming, radios chirping. Their floodlights turned the trailhead into a stage. I watched them fan out with rifles and spotlights. Young, confident, joking under their breath because that's how you keep nerves down. We ran a full search the next day. Dogs, volunteers, every ranger we could spare. The sun was bright, the sky cloudless. The side canyon looked smaller in daylight, its shadows shallow. We found the stone ring. We found the blood. We found more of the jacket jammed into a rock crack, like someone had tried to hide it. We didn't find Matthew. The dogs didn't like the circle. They'd approach to about 10 feet, then balk and whine, hackles up. One of the deputies joked about bad vibes. Morales didn't laugh. The official story settled on probable animal predation. The report lists cougar as the likely culprit, with one of those cover-your-ass lines. Though no conclusive physical evidence of the animal was recovered, behavior and sign are consistent with known predation events. If you read the report, it sounds tidy. Guy goes hiking, meets big cat, doesn't come home. Happens more than people think. The messy parts stayed in my head. His girlfriend came out twice over the next month. The first time, she met with a sheriff, nodded through all the phrases, ongoing investigation, low probability, we'll keep you updated. The second time, she drove out alone in a dusty Corolla and stood at the trailhead for a long time, just looking at the sign. I was coming off a patrol and didn't want to bother her. She came over to me instead. "Were you the ranger on call?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Carson." She shook my hand, grip tight, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Matt's... he likes to push things," she said, staring at the bulletin board. "Always has. But he's not stupid. He told me he'd be out before dark. He texted me from the lot." "He signed out by 5, I said, then wished I hadn't. It sounded petty out loud. She nodded once like that hurt. "That's him. Little promises." She pulled something from her bag, a scrap of paper, folded small, and pinned it to the corner of the corkboard with a thumbtack she'd brought. Her hands were shaking. Later, after she drove off, I went to see what it said. 3 words in uneven handwriting. "It spared me. Understand?" For a second, my brain just shrugged. Then it sorted through its filing cabinet and pulled out a memory from months before. A different call, different landscape. Central Idaho. Snowmelt below a slide path. We found a man standing in water up to his waist, lips almost blue, pants shredded, no boots. He refused food, refused to give a name, just stared at the tent wall and repeated the same line over and over. "It spared me. It spared me. It spared me." He might have added something else. I can't remember the exact order now. Shock scrambles people. Either way, that phrase stuck. I'd chalked it up to hypothermia. People say weird things when they're that cold. Now, staring at that note with the tack barely holding it, my skin crawled. I didn't tell her any of that. What was I going to do? Say,
Hey, your boyfriend and some half-frozen stranger might have met the same thing. Congratulations.
I took the note down 2 weeks later when it started to curl and bleed ink from the weather. I put it in my desk drawer. It's still there. Sometimes I knock my thermos against that drawer by accident in the mornings, and the sound makes my shoulders tense before I remember why. There's one more part I haven't told anyone. About a week after we officially called the search and shifted the documentation over to Recovery Unlikely, I went back to Cottonwood Wash on a day off. Middle of the day, blue sky, no clouds, temperatures in the high 60s. Nothing creepy about it on paper. I didn't sign in on the sheet. I know, practice what you preach. I told myself if anyone asked, I'd say I forgot. I walked the main trail with just my day pack, no radio. My knee ached halfway to the mile marker, a deep, dull throb that still flares when the weather changes. I told myself that was why I was breathing harder, not nerves. When I reached the point where Matthew's prints had left the trail, I stopped. The side canyon entrance looked smaller in daylight, just another scruffy cut in the rock, choked with scrub oak and old flood trash. If you didn't know, you'd walk right past it forever. I didn't go in. I stood at the mouth of it and listened. At first, nothing. Just wind moving through the main wash, a couple of scrub jays arguing up canyon, my heart ticking in my ears. Then, from somewhere deeper in, far enough that it couldn't be an echo from the main trail, I heard a sound I'd been waiting for without admitting it. A thin, strangled call. Help! Almost clear this time. The consonants hit in the right places. The vowel didn't drag as much. It didn't sound like begging. It sounded like someone practicing a word until they liked how it felt. I left. I didn't run, but it was a close thing. People online love to argue about labels. Skinwalker, Wendigo, Crawler, Fleshgate, whatever the latest YouTube channel calls it. They want a name so they can categorize it, put it in a box with lore and rules and bullet points. You're probably wondering what I think it was. I'm not Navajo. I didn't grow up with those stories in a way I have the right to explain them. Morales did. I've seen her face tighten when tourists throw the S word around like it's a mascot. I won't call it that. That's not my word. I'll tell you what I know. I've worked around mountain lions, black bears, feral hogs. I've seen what coyotes do to calves. I know the difference between an animal hunting because it's hungry and something toying with you. What watched me in that canyon wasn't just thinking about eating. It was studying. It moved like it was still figuring out how to wear what it was wearing, like it had put on a skin, maybe more than one, and the seams didn't quite match. The voice it used didn't belong to a single throat. It sounded like it was made out of pieces. And when it said my name, I'm sure of one thing. It wasn't repeating it back blindly. It was trying it on. These days, when an overdue hiker call comes in near dusk and dispatch says Cottonwood and Trailhead in the same sentence, I suddenly remember paperwork I've been putting off, or a training module I promised to finish, or my knee starts acting up. The younger rangers roll their eyes. They tell me I'm getting soft. Morales just gives me a look like she's not sure if she wants to know why. On the nights I can't duck it, and I find myself driving past the Cottonwood Wash State Park sign, past the CCC ruins, past the bulletin board with a fresh stack of sign-in sheets, I keep my eyes on the road. I don't look at the gap in the rock wall where the side canyon starts. I don't glance at the slope where something once walked parallel to me, matching my pace. And when the radio crackles in that stretch, picking up half a word or my own voice delayed and warbling, I turn the volume up just enough to drown out anything else that might be trying to learn how to say my name.
Have you ever been camping alone before? It can be quite peaceful. But as the sun falls lower and lower, and your ring of visible surroundings shrinks, you can feel quite exposed, wondering if there's something just outside of the light that is watching you, maybe waiting for you to let your guard down. Yes, it's easy to freak yourself out. It's just that kind of feeling that this story gives me. Mix in the uncanny valley feeling of a creature mimicking human speech, and you've got a recipe for the creeps. If you enjoyed this story, please check out the link in the description to the author's Reddit page, where you can find plenty more stories as scary as this one. As of this writing, they've posted a new story less than a day ago. Let's see here. It's called We Broke into an Abandoned Office Park. Now my friend won't stop calling me. Ooh, abandoned buildings, another favorite of mine. Maybe I'll go and have a look. But before you go, or I go, won't you please leave a like on this video and subscribe to hear more stories like this one? Let me know in the comments what you thought of this story. Whatever you do, radio for backup first. And don't fall asleep.